Hi everyone, it's Leona from Leona's Designs, and I'm doing a video today on the March prompt for Stitch With Me 2024, which is hosted by Danella Mellon on YouTube. And the prompt for this month, March, was music. So I'm getting ready to do my block for that. I am doing 6-inch blocks. Danella is doing a scroll for her projects, but I chose to do blocks. And if you remember, I did this block for January, which was, I think the prompt was direct or direction. And this was my February block. The prompt was time. So this month I'm choosing to do another scripture verse. For some reason, every month my blocks have been based on scripture verses, so I figured I would just continue doing that because I'm hoping to make these blocks into a wall hanging. So they will all be cohesive. And this month the prompt is music. So the scripture I chose was Psalm 40 verse 3, which is, "He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God." And I can't stitch all of those words on this block, or I could, but I'm not going to. So I'm just putting like the first sentence. He put a new song in my mouth. And I'm hoping to stitch those words on this side of the block. And then I drew this little robin bird for the month of March, because robin is the bird of the month for March. And I drew him for a greeting card series that I'm making. And I'm going to applique him on here, I'm hoping. And then write the words on this side. So I have my fabric picked out. My squares here are muslin, but I'm going to use this material for the background. It's a bunch of little music notes, which I think will be cute. So I'm going to cut that in a 6-inch block. And then my bird, his beak is going to be this yellow, and his breast this red. And then I have this gray material with little like golden dots on it that I'm going to just make his feathers be that. And to make my applique, I am using Heat and Bond. I have a piece of Heat and Bond here. That works very well for appliques, and my hope is to trace each piece of the bird onto that and then iron it onto my block. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to cut the background for my block here, and it's going to be 6 inches. What I do is my template. Just have my template here. I don't know where it went. Oh, it fell on the floor. Just a second, I'll get it. Okay, so I found my template and I cut it, used it to cut out this background piece of music fabric with these notes. Just have to press that down. And Now I'm going to cut out the pieces of the bird that I need to put on the heat and bond. So that will be his beak. And his head. And then his breast. Breast will be cut out of red, and then this part, it shows brown, but I'm really going to use the gray fabric. So this part will be cut out of the gray. And then his feet. I think I might, I'm not sure if I'm going to cut them out of the yellow or if I'm just going to stitch them on with some yellow embroidery floss. I'll see if I can cut them out of the yellow fabric. They are kind of small, so not sure how that will work. Might work. If not, we'll just stitch them with the yellow floss. Okay. So I have the heat and bond here. And on this heat and bond, there's a paper side and then there's the adhesive side. So you want to draw your image on the paper side. And then use, whoops, and then use that, excuse me, to iron it onto your fabric. Just going to trace around this red breast here. And this will be for the red. And then this will be for the gray. This. And just trace as close as you can. You can always trim it later if you need to. This is gray. And then, excuse me, his head is traced down here. Gray. And his beak's kind of small. See if we can do that. Where should we put that? I'll put it up here. His beak is yellow. And his feet. And his legs are yellow. So let's see if we can trace around these. Might be kind of tricky. Not sure how that's going to work out. Might just have to create them out of yarn or out of embroidery floss. They're so small, but we'll see. Okay, so those are both yellow. Now I will cut these out. And we'll try it with our iron. Save these little pieces. I might be able to use them for something else. I don't have my iron right here. But this is how I will do it. I'll lay the piece down. And then, since it's red on both sides, it doesn't matter. But if it is a print or if it isn't visible on both sides, like this, then you have to be careful to lay it down the proper way, because you want to be able to use this side as your, oh, can't see, this side is your applique, not this side. So when I'm putting these down, I actually have to do them this way on the reverse side. Or do it on the back this way. So I'm going to take you to where my iron is, and then I'll be able to show you better. Okay, we're at the iron, and what I need to tell you first of all is that when I was tracing these things onto the heat bond, I found out that I traced them the wrong way. When you're tracing your pieces onto the heat bond, you have to trace them on the opposite side. You have to turn them over and trace them on the opposite side, because when you're ironing the heat bond onto the fabric, you're going to be ironing it so the glue side is on the applique side. So you can't just trace it this way. You have to turn it over and trace it. I hope that makes sense, because when I tried it, I found out that when I traced it on the right side, the glue part then sticks on the applique side. So you have to turn your pieces over. Like this is the breast, to turn it over and then trace it on your heat bond. And then it should work right, which we are about to see. So I redid it because I did it wrong, and I just wanted to let you know before we went any further. So now we're going to applique this red, and this red doesn't matter because either side is the same. So set that aside to cool, and now we'll do the gray. Okay, this is the side I did wrong. This has the glue on it, so when I glued it down, it would have been this back side that showed for applique, and we didn't want that. I hope it makes sense. So now I'm gonna cut our feathers and our head out of this. Use on this end here. Try to save some fabric. So we're going to, now this side, this is going to be the glue side. So what we have to do now is applique these parts down to the back side of the fabric, or iron these down to our back side of our fabric. This didn't matter because both sides of the fabric were the same. Didn't matter what side of the fabric we ironed this down to. But these we have to iron down to the back side of the fabric, because this is where the glue is going to be. So now when we cut them out, the glue will be on the back side of the fabric and our applique will show properly. So I'm going to let that cool. And then we're going to do the same thing with our beak and our feet. We're going to iron them down to the back side of the fabric. And there we have it. So now when we cut them out, it should all come together to create our bird. We had to turn them over and trace them on the wrong way because you need the glue to be on the back side. If it doesn't make sense, I'm sure that you can watch a video by Heat and Bond and they will explain it to you exactly what you need to do. Just have to be sure that you get your glue side on the back side of the fabric so that your applique shows the right side. And once your Heat and Bond cools, it peels off really easily. So we have our feathers, we have our head, we have our breast. And now we're going to cut out our beak. And we'll cut our feet out and we'll see how they work for us, if we'll be able to use them or have to just stitch them on. I think they might be okay. I've only used Heat and Bond now. This is my second time, so I had to get it in my head exactly how to trace it and iron it. Okay, so we got them all ready to go. I'm going to go back to my craft room and I'll see you there. Okay, here we are back, and we're going to put our bird together now. Just peel off the Heat and Bond backing, and this side has the adhesive, so that will be glued down, excuse me, for his breast. And this is his gray feathers. And see, the glue is on the back side of the fabric. Oh, that's so pretty. Those two colors go really well together. And his head. This is how it goes. And his beak. Oh. Oh, there it is. Like that. This kind of fits under his head there. Perfect. Let's see if you can see that. And I think the feet might work. I'm gonna have to make some kind of branch, but I think they might work. I'm gonna glue them down until I get my branch. Kind of big feet, but I can trim them down. So I'm gonna have to go back to the iron and iron each of these pieces down, and then get myself a piece of brown fabric for the branch. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be back. Okay, I've got him ironed down. Just have to stitch all around him. And I found this multicolored brown fabric that I'm using for a branch. And I don't think he needs the feet. I think he's just sitting on the branch like that, and I'm going to try to find an eye for him. So I'm just going to stitch out, outline stitch around him and stitch the branch down, and then for my words I'm going to have to stitch them on this little piece of fabric and stitch it down. So first I'm going to stitch around him and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm coming back. I've stitched all around the bird, and I've just got to make a few more stitches in the branch. It looks very nice, but I do want to say that I will not use the Heat and Bond again for slow stitching. It would be great for a machine stitch. It would be great, but for slow stitch, it's too hard to stitch through. It was recommended to me to use it, and I tried it, and it's wonderful for applique, but I don't like it for slow stitch because for me it's too hard to stitch through. The glue is very heavy and it feels like you're stitching through rubber. So, I mean, you can do it, but it's really not enjoyable. And, you know, that's what slow stitching is supposed to be. It's supposed to be enjoyable. So, I just wanted to let you know that because I was, you know, showing you how to do it and all that. And my thoughts and recommendation are use it if you're going to machine stitch your applique. But if you're slow stitching, I wouldn't use it. For me, I'm just going to cut my pieces out and either pin them down and stitch them, or I will maybe use a little bit of fabric glue just to tack them down to hold them in place, but like a glue stick or something. But I won't use the Heat and Bond for slow stitch. So that said, just finishing up my little branch here. Just doing some straight stitches. On my bird, I did back stitches all the way around, and I sewed very close to the edge. So I was going through that glue all the time. I was thinking if you did whip stitch, it might not be so bad because you wouldn't be continuing to go through the glue. But that's my thoughts. I mean, you can try it and see what you think. But it was a fun experience and it is a good product for applique. I just won't use it again for slow stitch. I did use it for my tea bag art. I used it for creating the feather for tea bag art, and that was fine because I whip stitched around the edges. I wasn't continually going into that glue. So, you know, for something like that, it would probably work out. And the tea bags themselves are very thin and transparent, so that it did work out okay. So I'm just going to continue stitching on this branch, and then I will be back to create my letters for my little verse. Okay, so I'm back and I'm getting ready to print out my letters. So I think I want the first line to just be he. H. E. And then put a, really need to tape this down so it'd be easier to print it. Let me get some tape. Put a little piece of tape. Doesn't slide around on me. He put a new should I add some alphabet stamps? That would make it easier. Song. O-N. Be able to fit my G in there. It'll fit. In my mouse. He put a new song in my mouse. I'm going to go over that with black pen because I am going to use black floss. Song. In my mouse. And then I will have to write Psalm 40, verse 3 somewhere. I will have to stitch this down and then stitch the letters. I think that will work. So I'm gonna go put it right there. And I will stitch around it to stitch it down, and then I'll stitch the letters. Make it easier to stitch the letters if it's stitched down. So I'm going to use black thread. I have 3 strands of embroidery floss. I think I'll just put a couple pins in there to hold it. And then, oops. Let's see if I have enough room to stitch a blanket stitch. Don't have much room right there. I think I better just do some running stitches. So this video is a little longer than I was planning for because that bird took me so long. But he turned out cute, so I can't complain about that. I'm just going to put a few stitches around to hold it down, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and I have finished this piece. I finished all the stitching. I added the Psalm 40 verse 3 up there, and I'm ready to call this project done. So this is the March Stitch With Me 2024, hosted by Danella Mellon. I'll put a link to her YouTube channel in the description box, and I will also put a link to the instructions for heat and bond if anybody wants to give it a try that hasn't tried it. I will be using heat and bond in the future when I do my tea bag art, because the tea bags are very thin, and I have used heat and bond with them, and and I can stitch through it just fine with them. It's just this fabric was pretty heavy, and adding the heat and bond made it a little difficult to stitch through. But I got it done, and I'm happy and pleased with it. I thank you for watching. I hope you were inspired, and I hope to see you next month for Stitch With Me 2024 in April. Have a great day.